Well, this is Derrick Broze of the Conscious Resistance Network, and today we're going to talk about the guards at the prison where Jeffrey Epstein was allegedly killed, as well as some questioning taking place to the head of the Federal Bureau of Prisons regarding Jeffrey Epstein's death. Before we do that, though, I want to remind you guys to bookmark our website, theconsciousresistance.com, so you can get plugged into all of our latest content, articles, videos, essays, interviews, etc. I've been doing this website since 2012. If you want to find something of interest, I guarantee you we have something that will tickle your fancy. So check that out. Go ahead and search right here. You can also join the website and create a profile where I will be posting more discussions, hosting more private discussions as I try to move away from using social media and instead encouraging you guys to join us on the website. So look out for that. And if you want to follow us on Minds, on Steemit, on Discord, you can join our text list right here. You can also follow us on BitChute, and if you want to support via Patreon or via Subscribestar, you can do so right there. And finally, sign up for our email newsletter. Okay, so let's look at this report here. Senators grill head of prisons over Epstein's death. As I said, two different people were charged, two prison guards that were charged in the Epstein case for falsifying reports and things of that nature. So I would say that, I'm becoming more and more convinced, without hard evidence, I will say first, without the hard evidence, the smoking gun that proves that Epstein was murdered as opposed to killed himself, or that Epstein is even dead at all. I understand there's a lot of you out there who speculate and feel like you quote unquote know that Epstein is alive somewhere sipping, a margarita and things like that. It's kind of become the running joke. And I get that. But I also think that is a possibility. I think in some cases it makes more sense just to kill somebody like Epstein instead of keeping him alive. But I also know there's a lot of weird things about the death, like why they chose to show the body being wheeled out, and why, maybe it's just our reluctance and our difficulty to accept that, oh my God, Epstein was killed, and they're actually talking about as the potential that it wasn't a suicide, that it was a murder, which has its own implications and leads a lot of different places. That alone is big, if that's the truth. But then others are worried, and I understand this, we're perpetually worried that we're not going to get to the bottom of the story, that we're going to miss something, because we've been conditioned not to trust the authorities and anything we see on TV and anything coming from the government, which is a pretty good position to be in. I think you need to be skeptical of all of them. But because of that, we might have the truth in front of us, namely, perhaps Epstein was murdered, and that's all there is to it, and he was murdered because we know he was connected to high profile, powerful people, and we need to focus on that. Or, as many suspect, he is alive, and the whole is he dead or murder versus suicide is just a disinfo thread that they're getting us, a rabbit hole they're sending us down. I don't know at this moment. But let's get into this. Senators grilling the head of the director of Bureau of Prisons, who told a Senate panel on Tuesday she had not been briefed on details of an investigation into the jailhouse death of wealthy financier Epstein. The lawmakers pushed back and said the public deserves to know the truth. Now check out this from Senator John Kennedy, a Republican from Louisiana. He says, Christmas ornaments, drywall, and Epstein. Name 3 things that don't hang themselves. That's what the American people think, and they deserve some answers. And I know you're not in charge of these investigations, but you talk to the people who are. Tell the American people what happened. And what happened to one of the most high-profile federal inmates in recent history is at the center of an ongoing investigation by the FBI and other agencies. Bureau of Prisons Director Kathleen Hawk Sawyer told members of the Senate Judiciary Committee on Tuesday. We'll get a little bit more into the questioning here of her. At the hearing, Sawyer acknowledged that issues such as officers sleeping on the job have been a problem. Malfunctioning cameras, specifically the ones that monitored a hallway to the cell where Epstein was held, was another issue scrutinized by lawmakers. She said that many of her agency's cameras were analog machines, often producing a grainy and unclear picture of what they were focused on. The Bureau of Prisons was behind in establishing funding to replace these cameras, but in the last year it received money to replace all cameras in federal facilities with up-to-date technology, although the implementation process is ongoing. They also talk about significant staffing shortages that had led to untrained people being in guard positions. The interesting thing is this woman, Sawyer, she was brought on in August, but she was first the director of the Bureau of Prisons from 1992 to 2003 until she retired. And then in that time, the prison system has grown massively. and she's now coming back because the previous director was basically fired and let go because of the drawback, the kind of backlash to the Epstein situation. And so here is a little bit of the scene from her being questioned, not only by the Kennedy from Louisiana, but by Lindsey Graham right here. And there's more than a couple of minutes of this. Some of it's kind of irrelevant, but there's a couple pieces that I think are relevant, namely when they talk about a federal...
With the opinion that it was a suicide?
That was the finding of the coroner, sir.
Okay. Do you have any evidence to suggest otherwise?
I do not.
How could this have happened?
Unfortunately, sir, the death and the whole situation is still under the investigation of the FBI and the Inspector General's office, and I'm really not at liberty to discuss specifics of this case. I can discuss issues around institutional operations, but I can't specifically talk about that particular issue.
Okay. With a case this high profile, there's got to be either major malfunction of the system or a criminal enterprise at foot to allow this to happen. So are you looking at both? Is the FBI looking at both?
If the FBI is involved, then they are looking at criminal enterprise, yes.
Do we have people in custody today of this high-profile nature? Have we done anything to...
All right, so there you can see the criminal enterprise mentioned. Now, that could just be a discussion on standard operating procedure, but I think he's probably trying to point to are they looking into the fact that some sort of criminal element was involved in Epstein's death, whether suicide or murder. Now, I also want to show one of the other clip from Representative Senator Ben Sass, where he questions the same woman. So check this out.
Dr. Sawyer, can you think of any other incidents in the history of the BOP that have caused as much crisis for public trust for your institution as Epstein's death?
I can only speak for since 1976 when I joined the Bureau. I don't know prior to that, but I would say it's probably gotten the most public attention.
There are lots of taxpayers and citizens who've never thought about the BOP, and you have lots of good, patriotic, hardworking folks there. I get that. But in terms of a crisis of public trust in your workforce, this death happened in the middle of August, early August. It's Thanksgiving, and you're here to testify today, and you say you're not allowed to speak about this incident. I think that's crazy. Can you distinguish investigations at least for us? Because I'm aware of at least 3 Epstein investigations. You got a whole bunch of women who were raped by this sex trafficking ring in the United States. This guy had evidence. He's got co-conspirators, and there are victims out there who want to know where the evidence has gone. Can you tell us a little bit more about the different investigations? I understand there's at least one that you're directed by Main Justice not to speak about, but there are at least 3 investigations. Can you unpack them, please?
There are 2 investigations that are ongoing. One is the FBI's investigation, and the other is the Inspector General's investigation.
Both inside BOP, but there's a third one outside, which is why Epstein was in your institution to begin with.
Yeah, and that, sir, is completely out of my...
I get that. There's a lot here where DOJ has failed. There's a lot here that BOP has failed. Let's just be clear so we have a level set for everybody in this room. You're in your job because of this crisis, right? You come here today and you say you can't testify about it, but the reason you're director now is because the last guy got fired, right?
Senator, I can't tell you what I don't know. I have received no information from the FBI investigation yet, nor no information from the Inspector General. Once those entities go into one of our facilities, we are forbidden from talking to anybody in the institution. We can send in a team and look at wherever there might have been a security flaw or something, but we are not allowed to talk to anybody in our institutions about anything that happened over the Epstein.
With all due respect, you still have an obligation to speak to the girls who were raped by this guy today. You may not have to speak about every particular of the guards that were arrested last night, but the fact that there is an ongoing attempt by the United States government to find out if there's still any evidence about the co-conspirators, you do have an obligation to speak to those girls who were raped today.
So I'm going to leave that there, and I'll put the videos below, and you can just watch for your full self. But you can see Mr. Senator Ben Sass really giving it to that lady there, as well as Lindsey Graham here asking questions, and this other Senator John Kennedy asking questions. So at least 3 different people questioning the head of the Bureau of Prisons on the Epstein's death, and Epstein's death, alleged death, suicide, murder. You decide, I guess, at this point. And I don't know. we're just going to have to keep digging, guys. Keep digging, but also keep the focus on the co-conspirators, Jean-Luc Brunel, Maxwell, and others who helped procure these young ladies and get this sex ring operating, and the other networks that coexist and that are still in existence post-Epstein. We can't lose focus here that there is a bigger picture, that pedophilic child trafficking networks exist, and many are helped or supported by government officials. So we're going to leave it there for now. I want to remind you guys that we are running a crowdfunding campaign. Support the future of the Conscious Resistance Network. Just 5 days left if you want to invest in this campaign. Invest in our upcoming 5G documentary. Invest in part 2 of the Epstein documentary. Invest in part 2 of the Finders documentary. And support my time writing How to Opt Out of the Technocratic State, my next upcoming book. So you can do that there. You can also sign up at Patreon, and of course Subscribestar, or any other way you want to support real, true, independent media here at the Conscious Resistance Network. Please comment below, share, like, subscribe, follow, all that good stuff. And until next time, remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, you are free. Peace.